am Durga Rajesh Kumar, a high school senior who is very interested in poetry as well as articles. I am a strong believer of the quote, the pen is mightier than the sword, and along those lines believes in making an impact in the world. Today I am here on behalf of the Teen Pop magazine. The Teen Pop magazine, which is the first online magazine for high schoolers that gives young, aspiring journalists the opportunity to share their voice, build their writing portfolio, and receive peer feedback and mentorship in the editorial industry. If you would like to write for them, check their website, theteenpop.com. Today, I am in conversation with Alan Kurinkos, a 22-year-old cisgender homosexual male. He is a jack of many trades, master of none. His first love will always be literature. His friends and him started a queer collective in Kochi, India, for the artists of the LGBTQ plus community, and also a safe space for queer individuals to discuss and open up about the difficulties they might be facing. They collaborate with an event management company to organize the first Pride themed event in Kerala. Alan and Alan was the board member of an LGBTQ organization in Kerala and has been working very closely with the LGBTQ community for the past 5-6 years. So tell me, Alan, how are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. It's just happy, like all the recollection of the whole intro that you gave. It was fun.
Okay, so how do you voice for the LGBTQ community?
So I believe it's not always about the big revolution, big protests. Obviously, that is important. The whole pride is very important. But at the same time, every individual on their personal level can just share a status, WhatsApp status, or an Instagram story once in a while, and that itself is a protest, and it is a voice. So I do that, and whenever I get the opportunity, I advocate for the rights in campuses, educational institutions, and other legal sectors. So it depends on the opportunities. Yeah, so I don't go out and hunt for making changes. If I see an opportunity, I make sure that the voice is raised. Yeah.
Okay, so have you ever heard of a story about an LGBTQ person facing discrimination in your state, or have you personally been discriminated against for your sexual orientation or gender identity?
So, very recently, something in my very own district, very own city, Kochi, a very disheartening incident happened, and it shook the state quite badly. A transgender woman, during these lockdown days, she was trying to sell biryani for 60 rupees on the roadside. And she had competition from other vendors on the other side of the road. And they ended up calling her abusive terms, which we call for transgenders. They ended up using those, and it was quite, the situation was quite bad. And she ended up having a lot of emotional distress, and she took it to social media, and the whole social media thankfully was very much supportive of her, a major portion of it. At the same time, there was a minority that was against her. But later the whole incident became very bitter, and it turned out that 2 days earlier she had actually attempted suicide. So there's a lot of controversy happening around it as to she was not being genuine, she was trying to do it for the money and everything like that. But whatever it is, it all started with the discrimination that was thrown at her just because she was a transgender person. So that is a very recent thing that happened. For me personally, I have experienced homophobia a lot from my professors, and it was quite bitter. But I've made my peace with it. But it's something that still happens. So yeah.
Okay, so in this LGBTQ conversation, the word discrimination comes up a lot. So, what does the word discrimination mean to you?
For me, discrimination would be treating someone differently just because of a particular part of their identity. That's the easiest way to see what discrimination is. And often this different treatment is not in a positive way, it's more or less a negative way. And these are rooted on prejudices and preconceived notions about that particular identity or the person. That's the best way I could define discrimination, I guess. Yeah.
So, can you briefly describe some of the gay, lesbian, bisexual, or transgender people who are important to you in your life?
I won't be taking any names, obviously because of the privacy. I have a friend who is around 27 years old. She's a bisexual woman, and she has been a mentor to me. Her identity as a bisexual woman does not really come into play in my relationship with her because she's much, much more than that. She is a friend, an academician, an intellectual person who I enjoy having conversations with. She motivates me a lot. She's there in times of distress. There is one bisexual woman, and there is another bisexual woman who I simply adore and love. She's doing her bachelor's in education now, and again, even with her, the identity, the sexual orientation, or the gender identity does not really come into play because there's so much more than that. And yeah, I guess these two people are very close to me, and it's not because of their identity, it's just because of the person who they are, and their identity just happen to be a bisexual individual. So yeah.
So, what's one of the most difficult aspects of working with LGBTQ plus youth is the question of family acceptance. How important is it to integrate families in the support of LGBT youth?
So inculcating the family into the conversation or the support system is not an easy task. It's a very tedious, tormenting, pressuring, and it's a very long conversation. It cannot happen over a course of even a month or a year. It might even take more than that. The best thing that we can do is for the LGBT youth is to provide them with a support system and encourage them to build a very healthy relationship with the family so that when they are ready to come out, when they are ready, it will not be a toxic environment for them. They will feel more calm and more safe coming out in that environment. That is the best thing that we can do. We cannot force the family into having conversations about the LGBT community. That might risk that might risk their triggering. They might get triggered and they might turn out to be very angry at the individuals. They might be they might get very extra precautious about the everything that their kids do. If even if it's a simple hangout, they'll be scrutinizing it. Why are you doing this? Why are you going at this time of the day? Why are you going with him? Why do you always hang out with him? So all these questions, bringing it up at the wrong time can be very destructive. At the same time, as much as we say that it is very important that family needs to be in this particular conversation, or we should consider family. On a personal note, I wouldn't suggest bringing in family into the conversation unless and until the person's ready to come out and they have a stable or independent foundation to stand upon. Because families are first foundation, families are first ground, and we should be ready to have another if this ground breaks or we get disowned. God, hope that doesn't happen, but yeah. So as much as it is important, it depends on it's a very long process. It's a very complex process.
Okay, so do you think the parents who have LGBTQ youth in their house, do you think they are restricting their children to do something like this because of the social stigma or because they are protective of their children?
So can you say the question again? Like
Yeah.
the voice
So
got
the
faded.
parents who have LGBTQ youth in their house, do you think they do not approve of their child's identity because of the social stigma that's going around it, or because they want to be protective of their child?
Oh, it's both. It's both. It's both because the first part, obviously, the societal pressure, the stigma that revolves around it, and their own lack of knowledge and awareness about LGBTQ. Now, along with that, the prejudices that exist in the society, these parents of LGBT people are also part of the society. They are also unknowingly or knowingly, they are part of the problem. And hence, that would become toxic for the children. So both are equal parameters. It is not either this or that. It is both this and that. Both comes into play here.
Okay, so like anybody, professionals carry their own prejudice. How can professionals reflect on their own biases to be sure they are providing healthy support for the youth they work with?
You're talking about health professionals.
No, like support for the youth in these kind of matters. How supportive are they?
Okay. How can one person
Yeah.
provide support for
Is their
LGBT?
support healthy or is it toxic for the people in this community?
Okay, so how can support be healthy for LGBT people?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So first thing is talk to the youth about who they identify themselves as. It is very, very important that the individual themselves should identify as who they are. Just because I tend to fall in love with one particular man does not mean that I'm gay. Okay? You can't say that I'm gay. I should be able to say that I'm gay. I should be able to say that I'm bisexual. So it depends on the individual to identify who they are. Now, that is a first step, giving them the freedom to identify whomever as they want to identify themselves as. That's the first step. And the second step is to remove all prejudices maximum as much as you can. Do not have any prejudices, do not have any preconceived notions. Don't try to connect the dots. Like just because he likes to wear pink shirts or he has more of pink color or red colors in his wardrobe doesn't don't draw that conclusion, like that he could be queer, or oh, that explains why you're into all this kind of videos, or why you're watching makeup tutorials or hair tutorials. It's do not try to stereotype people on the basis of their identity. That is the second thing. First thing, give them the space to identify who they are. Second thing, remove stereotypes. Once you're able to have these two in your conversations with the youth, they will feel safe and they will feel heard, and that is when they will open up. And the third thing is, their experiences are their experiences. Do not talk about once upon a time when you were in a bus, you had this particular experience. They don't need to know that. They're opening up to you because they want to talk to you. They don't want to hear your stories. So hear them out, save your stories for sometime else. These are the basic ways how you can feel them, or make the LGBT people feel, youth feel supported. And it's very crucial at this point of time. Yeah.
Okay. So can you give us a snapshot of LGBT issues in the world? What is the trend in where things are heading?
Okay, so snapshot of the world would be a very, it would be a very long conversation, but I can tell you very briefly about what's happening. In the Western countries, or in the West as we call it, they are very progressive about it, but at the same time, there are individuals who are very conservative about it. And Oscar Wilde. Oh, The Picture of Dorian Gray is another wonderful book that one can read by Oscar Wilde. The story of Oscar Wilde was quite painful, but yeah, I mean, it was not exactly inspiring. It was kind of inspiring, but not in a good way. Uh, but yeah, I guess Oscar Wilde would be the one person's story that I would, you know, I consider it's close to me. It's not inspiring, it's just very close to me. Yeah.
Okay, Alan, so that is the end of our interview. Thank you so much for sharing so much information about the LGBTQ community. And I hope that the viewers watching this get a lot of insight into what actually happens and what should be done. I hope you had fun as much as I did interviewing you.